The German Center for Infection Research, or DZIF for short, was founded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research and the federal states and began its work in 2011. The DZIF is one of 8 German centers for health research. At the DZIF, more than 700 employees at 7 locations and 35 member institutions work together on the major challenges of infection research, all with the aim of so-called translation, the transfer of results from basic research into clinical practice. In this way, new and better diagnostic options, vaccines and medicines for patients with infectious diseases are to be developed.
The DZIF thrives on its unique network. Together we can achieve much more than a single partner site alone. We bring together universities and non-university institutions, doctors and scientists. We work together at the national and international level, for example, with our African partner institutions. At the DZIF, we have professionalized development processes for new vaccines and therapeutics. DZIF experts for product development support our researchers from the initial product idea to the market-ready drug. To this end, DZIF has created special research infrastructures, for example, to establish pre-clinical models, to conduct clinical studies, and to investigate and monitor disease outbreaks in order to prevent or contain pandemics, among other things. Our work also influences the development of medical guidelines that support doctors in selecting the best treatment strategy for infectious diseases. In addition, the training and promotion of young scientists is high on the DZIF's agenda. We support young talents who are often also young parents with special funding programs so that they can combine career and family life.
Antibiotic resistance is a major problem these days. Antibiotics are increasingly losing their effectiveness. Multi-resistant pathogens are on the rise. The development of new antibiotics is very time-consuming. It is costly and therefore not very attractive for the pharmaceutical industry. There are no market incentives. The DZIF is trying to close this gap and is developing new antibiotic agents to such an extent that the industry is interested in taking them on and developing them into a finished drug.
Antimicrobial resistance, that is to say the fact that antibiotics are largely losing their effectiveness, is one of the greatest challenges in medicine. We are looking for new antibiotics, focusing on natural substances that we identify in microorganisms. The German Center for Infection Research helps us particularly in the development of these substances for clinical application.
We recently succeeded in demonstrating the efficacy of an optimized substance in an animal model. This synthetic molecule is a so-called pathoblocker that abolishes the pathogenic properties of a hospital pathogen. At the DZIF, we will soon be bringing this substance into clinical trials as a new treatment option for intensive care patients with pneumonia. The experts at the DZIF also want to combat recurring infections with the bacterium Clostridium difficile in the intestinal flora. To this end, bacteria are extracted from the stool of a healthy patient in so-called FMT laboratories, short for fecal microbiota transplantation. These healing bacteria are transferred to a patient whose own intestinal flora is not intact. The procedure is often successful. In future, we would also like to combine our bacteria-based therapies with so-called bacteriophage therapies. Bacteriophages are viruses that can specifically kill bacteria without harming the other bacteria that make up our microbiome. With such a combination, we can hopefully treat particularly multi-resistant pathogens efficiently. Some people are carriers of multi-drug-resistant pathogens for long periods of time and are therefore at risk of either contracting a difficult-to-treat infection themselves or transmitting it to others. The DZIF is developing new therapies to rid carriers of these dangerous pathogens.
In collaboration with the biotech company Highfarm, the DZIF is developing a method to quickly and sustainably rid high-risk patients who are colonized with multi-resistant staphylococci of the pathogens. The novel procedure is based on a protein isolated from a phage, a virus that can inactivate these staphylococci. We are in the process of conducting a clinical study on the effectiveness of the new procedure.
The DZIF is also involved in the development of drugs against pathogens that are of great importance from a global perspective and for which there are currently hardly any therapeutic options. These include certain worm diseases. Over 12 million Africans are infected with threadworms, for example, which can lead to blindness in many cases. This is known as river blindness.
One problem that often arises in the development of antibiotics is the production of larger quantities, for instance, on an industrial scale, because it is often impossible to find sponsors. This is where the DZIF has helped us decisively, enabling us to enter into a partnership with the Japanese company Eisai for the development of clinical trials, and also successfully obtained funds from the Japanese Global Health Fund. The project is a good example of how long-term funding actually enables translation. This means that the products will ultimately also help people.
Tuberculosis has recently become more widespread, and many of the pathogens are resistant to almost all currently available antibiotics. The active agent BTZ-043 is the first antibiotic to be developed in Germany in decades and is effective against multi-resistant tuberculosis bacteria. BTZ-043 was discovered by researchers at the Leibniz Institute for Natural Product Research and Infection Biology Hans Knoll Institute in Jena. Since 2014, the Leibniz HKI and the Tropical Institute at the LMU Hospital in Munich have joined forces in a research collaboration to advance the preclinical development of the active agent.
With the help of the infrastructures within the DZIF, we were able to show for the first time that BTZ-043 is effective and tolerated in humans. However, treatment of tuberculosis always requires the combination of several active agents. In order to find the best combination with other new drugs, we have founded Unite4TB with many international pharmaceutical companies. Funded by the EU and the BMBF, Unite4TB is the world's largest network for clinical trials. 7 different combinations of BTZ-043 are now being tested here for tolerability and efficacy.
A groundbreaking translational success of the DZIF was the development of the first drug against Hepatitis D, a chronic infection that affects over 12 million people worldwide. Hepcludex was developed in Heidelberg by Stefan Urban. An approval study, in which many DZIF employees were involved, confirmed the drug's tolerability and high efficacy. The pharmaceutical company Gilead now markets the drug worldwide under the trade name Bulevirtide.
Of course, drug development requires a lot of money, which cannot be raised with normal budget funds. The DZIF has played a crucial role here in 2 respects. On the one hand, it has supported an infrastructure, my own professorship, which has enabled me to translate basic research into applied research. On the other hand, the DZIF has contributed directly to early clinical development, right up to the realization of whether a drug is effective or not. With this and the involvement of a company, this drug ultimately benefits patients, and thousands of patients are currently being successfully treated with it.
In addition to its work on active substances, the DZIF develops diagnostic tests and vaccines. Vaccine development in particular is of great importance for preventing and combating acute infectious diseases, as we saw impressively during the recent SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. Even before the pandemic, DZIF coronavirus expert Christian Drosten was involved in the development of tests to diagnose infection with another coronavirus, known as MERS. This virus is transmitted from dromedaries to humans via droplet infection and can lead to severe respiratory diseases.
As part of its team of experts for emerging infections, including pandemic pathogens, the DZIF set up infrastructures for diagnostic detection very early on. We succeeded in establishing diagnostics within a few days of the start of the pandemic, first in Germany and then worldwide. This certainly saved many lives and was based on the experience we had gained years earlier at the DZIF.
The DZIF can also build on earlier developments in vaccine development. Through the pioneering work of DZIF researcher Gerd Sutter, we at DZIF have developed a vector vaccination platform based on the modified vaccinia virus Ankara, MVA for short, which can be adapted to a wide variety of pathogens. We have used the MVA vaccination platform to develop new vaccines against the MERS coronavirus, as well as other emerging viruses such as the Ebola virus and the Marburg virus.
Ebola-Virus oder auch gegen das Marburg-Virus.
We are currently producing a vaccine to protect against the MERS coronavirus in order to work with and test vaccines against MERS and other life-threatening viruses, many of which are more dangerous than MERS. We need safety laboratories that are suitable for protecting the people who work in them and the environment. We have such a BSL-4 Biosafety Level 4 laboratory in Marburg, and the German Center for Infection Research has BSL-4 laboratories in Hamburg, on the island of Reims, and in Berlin at the Robert Koch Institute.
The next step was to test the MVA MERS vaccine directly on humans for safety and tolerability. To do this, we established a collaboration with our industry partner IDT Biologica, with the help of the DZIF product development team. Together with the DZIF infrastructure for clinical trials, the first test steps have already been successfully carried out on healthy volunteers. And the vaccine is now being further developed in a global vaccine network called CEPI. The MVA MERS vaccine is a good example of how the DZIF successfully brings new developments into the clinic as a team with different players, locations, and infrastructures. In the case of chronic infections, there is great hope that so-called therapeutic vaccines can redirect the immune system in such a way that the infection is cured. For example, the DZIF is working on such a vaccine for chronic hepatitis B, a disease that is currently incurable in most cases and can lead to severe liver damage and liver cancer. The therapeutic vaccination against chronic hepatitis B has the potential to help millions of people worldwide and could never have been developed to this extent without the DZIF network, which provides the infrastructure and the partners we need. This network has enabled us to test the safety of the vaccine on healthy volunteers, and hopefully, we will soon be able to cure patients. Numerous challenges, many successes that give hope. To ensure that this remains the case, the promotion of young talent is of great importance to DZIF. Young, talented researchers are supported so that they can develop into the next generation of highly qualified scientists.
The great thing about the DZIF Academy is that we give support to medical students, introducing them to infection medicine and accompanying them scientifically on their professional path to becoming a doctor. This works most effectively in the field of clinical infectiology and promotes both scientific and personal development. These young people are the next generation of scientists at the DZIF. In other words, the renewal process is essential.
The DZIF Academy has enabled me to establish contacts within infection research so that I can build up an initial network for my future career and exchange ideas with other researchers. The DZIF Academy has enabled me to free myself from clinical duties and devote myself entirely to science. For some time now, the DZIF has been supporting me in setting up my own research group and working independently. This means that infection research at the DZIF is well positioned to ensure that research results will continue to benefit people quickly in the future.
I hope we have been able to give you an insight into how the DZIF is committed to translational infection research for the benefit of the entire population. We ensure that scientific findings are better translated into clinical application and thus benefits all patients. You can find out more about the DZIF at www.dzif.de.